My name is Average Joe, and I'm a proud geek with expertise in movies, superheroes, and animation.
My name is Beef Pork Ribs. I'm a fine repository of esoteric knowledge, which I suppose most people would qualify as geeky. Though I dabble in many fandoms, my main areas of expertise are anime, movies, and Belgian comics, with a strong recent insurgency of D&D.
Our mission is to bring nerd and geek culture to the masses
by sticking it all under the microscope.
Welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast. Hello there, and welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast, where we put nerd and geek culture under the microscope.
A seasonal microscope with the lens perfectly attuned to what it should be doing.
So I had someone this week kind of comment, like, is it a stylistic choice for your podcast that people don't talk over each other? And I had to explain that it's more so because on Zencastr, it just sounds weird. Like try talking while I'm talking, and you'll understand.
I'll understand what we're.
Yeah, it starts to get a little echoey. But you know what? Like I say, embrace the echo, because if people think it sounds too, we're not robots. We are genuine people podcasting with each other. So I don't want to sound like a robot. So feel free to talk over me.
Well, I think it also has to do with when we started using Zencastr, we were all kind of in this mode of like Zoom meetings where you put up your hand and turn on your microphone after somebody's giving you permission. And that's how we started doing it, right? We started doing it on Zencastr because of COVID, because we had to be away from each other. And then it was kind of ingrained in all of us. And I know especially you did a lot of meetings and still do a lot of meetings for your job. And I am a teacher, so I had to like get my students in the habit of doing the same thing. So I think that's probably where it comes from.
Yeah. See it? Look, there we go. Perfect.
Well, yeah, because I feel like I talk over Beef Pork Ribs because we're married and in the same room. And also I know him, like I can tell when he's pausing usually and stuff. So like it's easier to be like, hey, it's cool if I like jump in here quick or whatever. And just like in general, like I know some podcasts I listen to have had a similar kind of issue where like they tend to be very like, you know, everyone's talking at once and stuff, and the style and sound has changed just because they're doing it over Zoom now and stuff, and they're just trying their best. Like
it's also a lot easier when you're in the same room to not directly, I think we talked about this, but like have eye contact to know more or less when somebody's talking. But also like we did do like a few of these episodes where we had like 6 people on at the same time, and it was kind of necessary to not talk on top of each other.
But I don't know if you guys noticed, but Mjolnir's back. First time since being married. So welcome back to the show.
Yes, it's Mrs. Mjolnir now.
Mrs. Ribs?
No.
Okay.
And keep my name, thank you. No.
She could assume a new identity as Mrs. Beef Pork Ribs, or she can just continue her, Mjolnir status.
Yes. Do the thing. I feel like in The Incredibles where it's like, oh, like I was Elastigirl, but now people just assume I'm like Mrs. Incredible. like no, I don't exist anymore now that I have a husband. That's fine.
Well, random piece of trivia. Elastigirl is an actual DC Comics character. So in the movie and in the Incredibles 2 movie, they do refer to her as Elastigirl. But because Elastigirl is trademarked by DC Comics, any of like the merchandise for the film generally refers to her as Mrs. Incredible to avoid the copyright on Elastigirl that DC Comics has.
Interesting. I guess that's like if you're going to overwrite a woman's identity with her husband's, I guess at least they had a reason for it.
It's kind of like why whenever you go to buy a Bumblebee Transformer toy, it always says Autobot Bumblebee, because I think DC Comics also has a copyright on the word Bumblebee because one of their characters is named Bumblebee. So every time you see a Transformer Bumblebee toy, it's always Autobot Bumblebee.
That's so funny.
Speaking of funny, Mjolnir, what kind of nerdy or geeky things have you been up to since you were last on the show?
I've been drawing a lot of fan art of anime characters because I've been getting more into drawing because I started a new job recently, And sometimes I work late shifts, and surprisingly, no one wants to come into the grocery store from like 9 to 10 at night. So I started like doodling on like a paper towel with a pen, and I was like, man, I forgot how much I love drawing. I should do that more. So now I'm drawing like One Piece characters and Hunter x Hunter characters as like Beef Pork Ribs and I watch One Piece. So that's been fun. Oh, we also watched Redline last night, which was super cool.
It's an hour and 40 minutes. It's hand-drawn animation. It's a story about a weird intergalactic race. Well, it's not intergalactic. It happens on one planet, but it's about car racing on an alien planet with mechs and weirdness.
It's that thing that animes have decided is a thing where like, oh, once we have the technology, drag races will no longer be about racing. They'll be about like, you know, I don't know, having giant hammers come out of the car and like just attacking the other racer the whole time. But like also there's more stuff going on. It's a really weird kind of dumb premise, but it works, and the art style is glorious. Like it's so pretty. I love it
Yeah,
so much.
it's a fully hand-drawn feature-length film, which is quite unusual in this day and age, and so that's pretty cool. And also, the main character's name is JP, so it's got to be pretty good.
So this is, I don't know what it is, why this keeps happening. We keep talking about people who have passed away, but another famous figure from nerd and geek culture has passed away. And this is one argument people probably don't know as well, unless you're a real big Star Wars fan. Have either of you heard of David Prowse before?
Oh yeah, I know about him. I don't think I think I watched an interesting documentary. I don't think I quite finished it. Or maybe I did. I don't know. It was years ago, but it was a documentary about how he kind of got a little bit screwed over by Star Wars and stuff. And like wasn't really given the credit he deserved for, you know, being Darth Vader. Cuz like Darth Vader is a lot more than just the voice, and all anyone ever talks about is the voice pretty much. But this man was like the body, like he was the actor in the suit.
Yeah, David Prowse was the actor who physically was on set as they were filming the movie in the Darth Vader costume, and he was actually saying all the lines, as other actors were working with him. And yeah, I think I watched the same documentary. I think it was called Empire of Dreams or something. But what I took away from that is that David Prowse has this very thick Scottish accent, and apparently, like they never intended to use his voice for the part because it just, I guess, wasn't the right voice they were looking for. But no one ever told him that they were going to use a different actor for the voice, so he found out that he wasn't the voice of Darth Vader when he was watching the movie in the theater.
Which is horrible. Like I'm an actress. I can just imagine that feeling of being like fine, you have day of, especially you tell everyone you're in this movie and stuff, and you're hidden for the like, you can't really tell it's you, and the only thing that people would be able to recognize in it has been taken away, and you find that out day of, and that all that like passion and skill and thought you put into your performance, like a major chunk of it has been replaced without even telling you.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. James Earl Jones has a great voice for
Yeah.
Darth Vader, and it made sense. But yeah, it is kind of surprising. Although
It was handled horribly.
Yeah.
Like it's okay that they did that. Sometimes you need to like ADR someone or whatever. Like it's fair to replace the voice, but you should definitely like let someone know up front what the situation
this
is.
isn't like when at the premiere of Empire, when they had the whole reveal about Darth Vader being Luke's father, and Harrison Ford just turned towards Mark Hamill and just got really upset at him for not letting him know. It's a different order of business.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of my favorite jokes from Family Guy is they make a joke about, oh yeah, like we should only have James Earl Jones do the voice because, of course, he's shorter and very rotund compared to David Prowse. So he would, if it was James Earl Jones in the suit, it would not nearly have been the same presence. Granted, David Prowse, from what I understand, is mostly like a bodybuilder. So, and I've seen like some audio of his like acting on set. I think they made the right choice by not using his voice. But yeah, definitely like a human resources fiasco.
Mm-hmm. Well, because I mean, musicals do a similar thing all the time, right? That they'll have, um, live action or animated, right? A lot of the time, there will be different talking and singing voices, right? And sometimes they mesh more than others. Sometimes you're like, you can't even tell. Sometimes you're like, that's clearly a different person. But there's usually a reason they do that, and that's fair. Because and often, I saw this really good Nostalgia Critic editorial on this, when is dubbing needed and stuff, right? And it's like, no, sometimes it's fair to be like, this character and this line and like what we're trying to get across deserves someone who is, a singer specifically, right? Like who has no one is the best at more than one thing. So you can be like an actor and an okay singer, but if the role calls for an amazing singer, then like it's fair to split up the things, and then overall you'll get a better character, and like more than one person working together making a conjoined performance. I think it's completely legit. But the problem is when credit is not given for like half the performance. That's when the issue comes across, because it was a good physical performance and it was an amazing performance through voice, and only one of them got credited, really.
Yeah, I think by the time Empire came out, they did like have him in the cast as Darth Vader, and then they credit James Earl Jones as the voice of Darth Vader. But like it would have been hard to, like, he was a tall, imposing man, and would have been like that presence brought a lot to the role, and he had to do all the lightsaber fights wearing that big costume. So credit
Mm-hmm.
to him for having to do the hard work of just doing all of that. And I think a little thing people don't know is that he actually trained Christopher Reeve for Superman. So Christopher
Really?
Reeve's physique in the Superman films is a result of training with David Prowse. So like there's something else people can credit him for. And even in Empire or Return of the Jedi, excuse me, when they do show you his face under the mask, they got a different actor to do it. So like David really never did get to like have his face shown
Right?
as Darth Vader.
I find that so sad. I'm like, I feel like at that point it would like, and especially because they're covering him with makeup and gunk anyway. Like, I don't know. You might as well use, give this guy some credit. Give him like a teeny bit of screen time. Like, he deserves that, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
They
But
go
that guy
down.
got replaced by Hayden Christensen anyway in the special edition. So
yeah, that was also kind of unfortunate. I feel like at that point it's also potentially better that wait, it wasn't. It was the actor who was wearing the mask who was the Force Ghost, right?
yes, yeah,
In the
that's
original,
what I mean.
yeah.
That
It would
was
have been
who
even
was.
worse if they would have made him the Force Ghost and then taken him out in the new edition. It's like, yeah, we're just erasing every part of Star Wars you've ever been in.
Yeah, and maybe Anyway, all that to say, David Prowse, you're certainly a huge part of movie history and Star Wars history. Arguably, Darth Vader is the most recognizable Star Wars character there is, and
Mhm.
your physical performance brought a lot to that. So rest in peace. We'll be praying for the repose of your soul and for your family as they mourn.
Mhm.
Today we are diving into our Christmas themed episodes for the month of December. I'm super
Woo.
excited. People who listen to the show know that I'm big into Christmas. I had the first experience ever of actually going to a Christmas tree farm and cutting down a Christmas tree yesterday.
Ooh. Very
Because
like Christmas movie of you.
well, I have the allergy to evergreen trees. So growing up, we've always had artificial trees, and I still have an artificial tree to this day. But I was invited by somebody to just join in on the festivities, and I'm like, why not? To say at least have the experience, and yeah, I chopped down someone's tree for them with this little hatchet, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I sort of figured if I just keep hacking at it, eventually it'll fall over, and indeed it did. Are you guys have you guys found a tree yet, or is that even on your radar?
I don't know. Your family was an artificial tree family, right?
No, my
Or
family
no?
got real trees, but
Okay.
see, this is the thing. My family had 6 kids and was poor. So we would get a tree like Christmas Eve. We would go to like Walmart or whatever and see what trees they had left that were like super on sale, or like go by there, you'd have like, a parking lot full of Christmas trees and like that temporary Christmas tree business, and buy by Christmas Eve or like Boxing Day or whatever, they've just packed up and left and abandoned any Christmas trees they didn't sell there. So that's normally how we got our Christmas trees. So that it wasn't the normal Christmas tree
But I suppose,
experience, but we still got real trees.
yeah, but being Ukrainian Catholic, you celebrate Christmas later anyway, so it
Yeah.
would make sense to grab it. Okay. Yeah, we always got natural trees. I've went to the Christmas tree farm most of my childhood until we as long as I lived in my parents' house, we always had a natural tree. So it was yeah, until university there was one. I don't know about this year. I'm a fan personally, uh, because we live in an apartment, of doing what my older sister did, which they got this like Christmas tree um, mural tapestry thing from IKEA. Actually, originally it was out where they were living, and I actually bought one and brought it when I went to visit them for the holidays or just before the holidays, and they still have it. It's super useful, especially for them because they have young children, and but because the tapestry is kind of a felt like material, they can take like felt Christmas ornaments and like stick them to it and it will stay up. And they can
Oh,
also
that's
rearrange some of the ornaments. So
Yeah, we have two cats, so like I don't think a tree is a good idea, especially in a small apartment. I haven't had a Christmas tree since I moved out of my parents' house. It never like decorations have never been a thing I'm super interested in. Like our wedding had no decorations because I was like, it's way too much effort, not worth it.
See, I put up all my Christmas decorations a few weeks ago because I happened to have a random week of vacation, but I didn't put any ornaments on the tree because I wanted to at least save something for Advent. So this
Mm-hmm.
afternoon, one of my housemates and I finally put all the ornaments on the tree. So our halls are fully decked, ready to go. The lights are on the house, and it's time for us to start talking about Christmassy stuff. So for
Woo!
those of you who are, yeah, hopefully this is exciting for people.
I do
We're
love Christmas, just like the decorations. Like I don't know, too much effort right now.
yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, and so to get us started, we have a movie to talk about that is in a weird way, like I guess a transitionary movie. You know, it's kind
it's
of
a
combines.
Christmas movie.
It
Well,
is
yes,
both.
but
It is
yeah,
equally both.
it combines elements of two different holidays. So we're talking today about The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Woo!
And I watched it for the first time today, so my thoughts and reflections on this are kind of very fresh. But secret origin segments here. I think I can honestly remember a time when I wasn't aware of this movie. Probably because like a lot of the Disney VHSs I had as a kid would have commercials for The Nightmare Before Christmas, and it just never seemed to be something that struck my interest. And then as I got older, I remember there was a girl I liked in high school who was really into The Nightmare Before Christmas, and she had a lot of like the merchandise. And as I've gotten older, it's hard to not be involved in the nerd and geek community and not hear about this because like Hot Topic has like a ton of merchandise for The Nightmare Before Christmas. And yeah, this just never was a good enough reason for me to actually sit down and watch the whole thing. I've of course heard other people talk about it, and I'm aware of like what the story's about, and it probably has something to do with the fact that I've never been a giant Tim Burton fan either. But I finally watched it today, and
Even the
I'm sure you
Batman
guys.
movies?
I have feelings on those movies, but what are your guys' secret origins with this franchise? Is this no? This isn't a franchise. Well, in
Unless you
some
get it as
senses,
part of the Tim Burton verse.
yes, sure. Okay, what's your secret origin then for this element of the Tim Burton verse?
So I was definitely aware of it as a kid because like I remember going into the Disney store and they had like merch. You remember when the Disney store it had its own store? It was so great. It was magical. Anyway, they'd have like little Jack Skellington stuff. Like they'd have stuff from the movie, and I remember because my family was super pissed. It's like, how dare they have these like devil creatures in the Disney store? Children, avoid that section. Um, so I wasn't allowed to watch it. My family vehemently was against it. I think my dad said like he watched it when it first came out, when like he was adult, like a young adult ish or like yeah, like and was like, oh yeah, like it has it's impressive with the stop motion, but I don't know. My family's just really like oversensitive about that stuff, and about which like to be like there's a certain level where I understand, and I definitely think like I know people who are like, oh yeah, my like 4-year-old loves that movie, and I'm like, no, I'm sorry, that's too young. Like I think it's a really good movie. The first time I ever watched it was like a couple years ago. I think I moved in with a roommate, and she's like, how have you never seen Nightmare Before Christmas? It's amazing. So we watched it, and I was like, yeah, it's good. It's like it's a beautiful piece of art. It has a very specific style and vibe. It's great. But I do like I understand why some Christians have issue with it, with like I don't know. I mean, it's like it being a glorification of evil or whatever. I think it kind of does the opposite. Like the point is like no, the the point was that the evil wanted like the evil, even evil realizes, that there's better stuff out there, but I don't know. But yeah, but like I don't think it's for young kids or anything. Like I think you depending on the kid, you'd still want them to be a bit older, but I think like there's a reason it's a classic at this point. It's really great, and I've definitely seen it a couple times in like since like 3 years I've seen it.
Wow, I guess I'm the only one who watched this as a child. I mean, not a very young child. Again, I mean, I don't think my mother objected. My mother didn't object to Halloween as a concept, or to Tim Burton, or to Nightmare Before Christmas as a concept. Though she is definitely not a fan of anything remotely horror based. So we didn't watch it as a family or anything. But I did watch it when I was in probably middle school, I think, for the first time, and I loved it. It was great. It's a really nice movie. I went through a phase when I around that age too, where I really did like stop motion animation, and I was actually I did a little bit with Lego when I was around that age, and I also strangely started doing like animation in PowerPoint, which was very strange. Basically, just copy pasting an image and putting like making the image appear and then disappear as soon as the next one appeared to form an animation. So like I was into animation, and it was great. And I do also remember I liked stop motion because I absolutely loved Chicken Run. It was
But
such
it's
a
so ugly.
I disagree entirely, and I love that movie.
It's getting a sequel.
Yeah.
My god.
Oh, yeah, but
They're
it
not bringing
probably
back Mel Gibson.
Interesting.
that is an interesting choice. I don't think that movie was like. I think the movie was good enough to deserve a sequel at the time. I think it's not a good thing to pull it out again to make a sequel, but who knows? But yeah, so all that to say, I was really into animation, stop motion particularly, and Nightmare Before Christmas it is still like a masterpiece of animation.
Mhm.
And even like other things that have been done similar to it, like I'm thinking about like Corpse Bride. It has a very similar look. It's still Tim Burton. It's still the same kind of thing, but it just doesn't have the same life into it. And the fact that it was like a very musical movie, I kind of liked, though
Yeah.
never. I I'm trying to think. It may also fall into that category of movies I saw when I was a kid, therefore in French, because I don't remember the songs all that well compared to other people who've seen it. So I think it's because I saw the movie in French originally, and therefore might know some of the songs in French and maybe not. It's a common problem with me in Disney movies.
How would you do "This Is Halloween" in French?
I don't remember. It's
C'est le
again,
Halloween, c'est le Halloween.
I mean, often it ends up being something like that. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so this is good. We're bringing some kind of different perspectives to the table here. This movie was released in 1993, so at this point, it's what is that? 20. It's almost 30 years old. Oh man, that makes me feel
How
old.
old are we? And then
Yeah, I don't want to think about it. Okay, so yeah, it's an older movie, so we're not going to do the whole non-spoiler spoilers. We're just going to talk about it. If you're like me and haven't actually seen this thing yet, hopefully this conversation will make you interested in checking it out, or not. Who knows? P4 Cribs, why don't you do us the pleasure of giving us the Blu-ray case description for The Nightmare Before... Oh, sorry, Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Right? Like
This holiday season, don't you wish your stockings were stuffed with Tim Burton's smash hit, The Nightmare Before Christmas?
Eureka!
Jack Skellington's discovered the magic of Christmas.
Oh!
And now he's turning the holiday world upside down.
Nice work, Bone Daddy.
It's going to be the weirdest holiday ever.
Surprised, aren't you?
And won't your parents be surprised?
What did Santa bring you, honey?
It's Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, rated PG.
Yeah. In a world, I'm going to start it that way. In a world where holidays have special realms, where the personification of their different holidayness are ruled by popular culture icons, the king of Halloween, Jack Skellington, is having a midlife crisis about being stuck in horribleness, finds a portal to Christmas, and tries to take over Christmas with the rest of the Halloween crew. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work.
I'm so happy you framed it as a midlife crisis, because when I was watching it, that's exactly what I felt. I'm like, this dude is having a midlife crisis, and him trying to do Christmas is like his buying a new car. And I felt for him. I'm like, look, I don't like Halloween. I love Christmas. If I was stuck in Halloween world and I discovered Christmas, yeah, I would totally want to jump ship.
He's having a midlife crisis, but because he's like the king, he's just dragging everyone else down with him.
That is true. Nobody else seems to really, like, everybody else in Halloween Town really only does this because Jack is doing it.
Like, they all enjoy their lives and are perfectly happy terrifying children as a job.
Yeah, so, I mean, this movie has Tim Burton's name on it. It originated as an idea of his, and like most Tim Burton products, it started with some kind of visual, because people might not know this. Tim Burton was actually an animator long before he was a writer or a director. He actually worked at Disney as an animator. I found out that, you know, among the films he worked on was like The Fox and the Hound. So that I think if you understand Tim Burton, you understand that he has an animation background, because his visual style, whether his films are animated or live action, have such a unique look to them. You know, I would almost compare him to like an anime producer or like a manga artist, because his visual style is so unique and so twisted. And I say that because so many of the buildings and things he has are very twisty, that you get a frame of any movie of his and you're instantly able to recognize it as a Tim Burton thing.
Mm-hmm. My dad used to refer to Tim Burton as one sick puppy. That was his like go-to description for him. Like, fair. It's pretty fair description. But yeah, he's a very creative man, clearly. I mean, he hasn't made anything great in a while. There have been a lot of misses lately, but he definitely at least was like, he was full of ideas. But I think it's also interesting, a lot of the best things that are attributed to him was like, he's an ideas man, and it was other people who were actually able to give it structure and like properly flesh it out and make it memorable. Like, I think pretty much all of his like well-known stuff, like the really classic stuff, it was like, it's not just him, and I think he got too much power, and that's why his stuff lately hasn't been as good, because he's always been like, he's like the match. He starts the fire and he needs other people to kind of fan it or like calm down the flames when you need it to, kind of.
Yeah, real George Lucas type.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we watched Beetlejuice recently, and that's a similar thing. Although I did not watch Beetlejuice until fairly recently, and I just remember we rewatched part of Nightmare Before Christmas today, and
yeah, we didn't have time to watch the whole thing, but we like greatest hits.
Yeah, and I just remembered, oh yeah, the snake tongue of Oogie Boogie is exactly the same as like the sand snakes in Beetlejuice. It's like exactly the same design. I'm like, oh yeah,
borrowed imagery from
he does that.
Projects. And Beetlejuice too. Like, it's a really weird movie. Like, I kind of like it now for what it is. It's very weird, but like, I like the Beetlejuice musical more, and I think it's a lot better done. And that's once again people taking this inspiration and like other people's ideas overall, fleshing it out and making it a better like actual story with a plot and like well-rounded characters instead of just mostly an aesthetic.
But like this should be one of those cases, because even though he came up with the idea and the story, and he like his vision, it's his visual style, he actually had like very little to do with the like the nuts and bolts of this movie, because somebody else wrote what became the screenplay. He was filming Batman Returns, and he was getting ready to film his Ed Wood movie. So he couldn't commit to directing this, and he also apparently didn't want to be involved with the minutia of stop motion animation. So he assigned, or whoever was in charge assigned Henry Selick to be the director of this, and Henry Selick has said that his job was to try and make it as Tim Burton like as possible. So this is arguably what you'd like to see, Mjolnir. It's people taking Tim Burton's match and making something out of it.
And it works great. It's I think that is proof of my theory right there. Is this movie for sure? And once again, like we were talking about giving artists their credit, especially when a lot of people are involved in something, and a lot of the time someone gets dropped by the wayside when they shouldn't be. Same kind of idea here. Like that sucks. Like that director dude, I don't recognize his name. Like that's really unfortunate for him, because this movie is so associated with Tim Burton, even though he had, like you said, very little to do with it. And also, once again, Tim Burton's a very aesthetic guy, so like I find that so kind of rude to be like, oh, I like the aesthetic of stop motion, but I don't want to deal with like the hassle of stop motion.
Especially as an animator, because he would know what it is. Like
he'd understand the suffering.
he's done classic animation. I also find that it's funny. It's almost like a lesser version of what Spielberg did with Animaniacs, because like he wasn't directly involved with the Animaniacs project per se, but he still like reviewed, like even though he was working, Spielberg was working on other projects while Animaniacs was being made, he still like reviewed and gave notes, and was, I mean, probably not involved with the minutia of animation either, but still pretty, active in kind of the creative process of it.
Yeah, I don't know, but guys, like after watching this movie, I'm like, wow, it's not that long. It actually ended fairly quickly, and it felt I maybe because maybe if I was I was alive when this came up, maybe if I was watching it for the first time, having never seen any of the footage, I would be amazed by it. But because I'd already seen a whole bunch of the clips, the animation was pretty to look at, but the story was kind of just very simple, and the music was like, it was fun, but it didn't like blow me away. Again, probably because I've heard some of it before. I don't know. It didn't. I'm kind of like that. I don't feel like I wasted my time, but I'm also not in love with it all of a sudden.
Something like
you weren't vibing with it.
Oh, I feel it's more like, is it one of those cases like I want to like this more, but I'm not able to?
Or it's one of those, I guess it didn't live up to the hype. Like there's so much, because I get it. Like there's, and maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm just not in the audience, because like I like Christmas a lot more than Halloween. So this movie that's like bringing a lot of the Halloween flair to a Christmas story perhaps is not meant for me. Or maybe I'm just not enough of a Tim Burton person to really appreciate the Tim Burtoniness of this.
Both of those are possible. I think, like, here's the thing though, that like rewatching it, because I hadn't seen it in almost 2 years, I think when I was rewatching it, I think I was actually struck by how good the animation was, especially for a movie that's almost as old as I am. Like, it still holds up. Like, it's obvious that it's stop motion animation, but it is very crisp. It is very well done. It was like a huge minutia, and I think that's what I like. Yes, the story is simple. There are some plot points that don't make that much sense, and it's weird, and it's Tim Burton-y, but like I think I watched it specifically, like was admiring the animation. I was like, yeah, this is actually great. And like, of course, it's not, Into the Spider-Verse mind-blowing, but it is still very solid and very good stuff.
I would give it another chance as well, because I feel a lot of classics or cult classics, or even more specifically Tim Burton movies sometimes, like, especially when it's really hyped up, I feel like there's some movies you have to watch twice before you know how you feel about it. And like, because I had like a similar experience with Beetlejuice. I found the Beetlejuice movie super kind of weird and cryptic and disappointing, especially after I'd liked the musical so much. But we watched it on Halloween this year, and I was like, no, I enjoyed it way more, and I was able to accept it for kind of what it was, and for the weird piece of art it was that clearly a lot of people had put a lot of love and effort into. And yeah, I don't know, I feel like this is kind of one of those movies, not as bad as some. Like, I feel like like something like Rocky Horror Picture Show, you have to watch twice before you know how you feel about it, because it's just so like insane. You can't, like, you watch it and you're like, I don't know what that was or how I feel about it. Like, it's not quite that bad. I think some people definitely can fall in love on the first watch, but yeah, I don't know. I think Nightmare Before Christmas is one. It's like so stylistic and it's so specific that knowing exactly what you're in for might help with figuring out if you actually like it or not.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about it being like an art piece, and I would argue almost more than a movie, this is a piece of art, because it's true what you said, Beeper, about the stop motion animation being crisp and smooth. Like, it is very intricate and it looks very fluid. Like, you wouldn't really know it was done with stop motion cameras. And I can appreciate this because I had the opportunity when I was in grade 7. We went to the National Film Board in Toronto, and they gave us an opportunity to like make some little stop motion movies with some claymation figures. And I worked with a group of people for like an hour, and it was literally like when we watched it, it was like a 15-minute or 15-second clip, and I was like, we spent an hour just for that.
And that was probably just one character without a background.
Yeah, I'm trying. I think it was like someone was littering. Someone kind of threw something on the ground, and then another character kind of waved their hand at them, and they picked it up and put it in the trash.
I mean, the other thing is, okay, and this might be, I think we've talked about this before, but also, I absolutely loved Pingu as a kid. And I think that might have also worked into why I enjoyed Nightmare Before Christmas so much when I first watched it, because it's claymation. It's a style. I don't know. I really like that style of animation. Like, I remember when the Lego movie came out, being disappointed that it wasn't stop motion Lego figures.
But it kind of still looks like it.
No, it doesn't look like stop motion at all. It's clearly 3D animation. I watched
it, but I'm not as big a fan of stop motion as you. I like other animation styles better, but like stop motion is always super impressive, of course.
Yeah, I mean, they pointed out that making it stop motion kind of makes it feel like the old Rankin Bass, kind of Rudolph and Santa Claus is Coming to Town Christmas specials, and that's one point I hadn't considered, because like, it's true, it does. There's something inherently Christmassy about that kind of stop motion.
That is true, actually. I guess that, yeah, they put more thought into this than we realize. But yeah, that's actually really interesting that they wanted to capture that feel. It works for sure, especially when Santa's there. Santa boops his nose and flies off. So funny. But like, because yeah, I'm an artist, and I always have been very intense and passionate about a lot of that stuff. And like live action movies, I always find it really interesting, the process behind the acting and like, the effort it takes for acting. And it's a kind of similar thing, but a very different kind of admiration for animation. And as someone who's done that stuff, both like, because I do costume makeup, which there's some similar ideas behind that for just basic artists. And yeah, I draw and stuff. So like, I know how hard some of that stuff is, and I know how much I wish I was that talented and stuff, I guess. So like, for me as a person, that type of movie, like, that's more than enough. I can understand how if some people, they need more plot or this and that. But for me, the experience of enjoying someone's art come to fruition, and such a well-made piece of art, I think like that's worth being a classic.
I'll add to that just a little thing, is that animation is hard enough. Animation in tune with music is is another level up from that. And this is post, well, not much post, but this was in a time where it had become, in the last like 5 to 10 years. No, well, Akira was 89, so like, yeah, for the last 4-ish years, lip syncing animation had become a thing, and doing that in claymation is really impressive.
Mhm.
And for people at home wondering, this, in terms of how the Bad Jar podcast defines Christmas movies, this is very much, as weird as it seems, an A-type Christmas movie, because if you removed Christmas from the plot of this movie,
Yep, it makes no sense.
there would be no plot, because it's literally about this Jack Skellington trying to take over Christmas, which is so weird to think about. People consider this a Halloween movie, even though the plot is all about Christmas. I guess because so much of the visuals, and that's actually, I felt that way watching. I'm like, this feels like a Halloween movie just because you see much more of the Halloween visual presence than you do the Christmas stuff.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of interesting like that because I think that's why it works equally well as a Halloween or Christmas movie, because the style and visuals and most of the characters are very Halloween and that very spooky, cryptic, like Tim Burton-esque, just like monstrosities and deformed things. But then but the driving force is Christmas. So it's really like, it's really interesting. It is like, I think it's equally it's equally grounded in both things, but it's different parts of the movie that are grounded in those, which is interesting.
Ben, the movie buff, really wanted to be here for this episode, but he couldn't make it. So he once again made a little message for us. So beef pork ribs, let's get you doing your enthusiastic voice, reading out our the comments from Ben.
I think that The Nightmare Before Christmas is an enjoyable Halloween/Christmas movie. I would argue that the perfect time to watch this film is in late November, when it's 3 to 4 weeks after Halloween, but also 3 to 4 weeks before Christmas. It's silly to debate whether it is strictly a Halloween or Christmas movie. To me, it is both. I really like the music. This is Halloween
This
being
is
my favorite
Halloween.
tune.
I was trying to sing the title as you were
Oh.
saying it.
This is Halloween being my favorite tune. And the Marilyn Manson version is great. That was Beef Pork Ribs, not Ben saying that. I also absolutely adore the camera work, sets, and creature design. Everything looks amazing. Who can forget that shot of Jack Skellington walking down the slopes with the colossal moon behind him? The shot was clearly so beautiful that it was for the main poster. However, I believe the movie is too short. Not including credits, Nightmare is barely 72 minutes long. I wish there was just a little longer so we could have a slightly more of everything. For example, I have many questions about this fantasy world that I feel weren't answered. Quite often I criticize movies of being too long, but I genuinely would love if this film had been an 85 to 90 minute an 85 to 90 minute runtime. Then again, maybe this is a compliment in disguise. I left this movie wanting more. Anyway, this is a fun movie that is definitely worth your time, but maybe don't watch it with little kids present. Agreed. I give this movie 3 out of 4 bat cookies.
Yeah, that's fair. I agree with this assessment.
I think it does bring forth, though, something like that I found was interesting rewatching. Like, a lot of the subplots, well, there's like 3 subplots ish, and a lot of them could kind of have a bit more elaboration, and I understand that point of view, but I also feel like the movie is so well grounded in its own universe that you don't necessarily need to add more lore. Like, there are movies that you watch it and some of the visuals just don't make sense and felt out of place and needed to be explained. And I don't think this is the case with Nightmare Before Christmas. It's like, yeah, it would be nice to maybe know a bit more of the history of the Oogie Boogie Man and where he came from and why he's kept in the basement and, the hierarchy of beings in it. But I don't feel like there's a need for it. They don't seem out of place or strange. It's like something I don't quite know, but I don't need to know to understand it.
Okay, but the romance is so lame. Like, it ends on them kissing, and I'm like, this is at best a one-sided relationship.
I mean, funny thing, Mjolnir and I were talking about the movie, and she kind of mentioned that, yes, she is like, she's clearly in love with Jack Skellington, but then again, so is like everybody else in Halloween Town. Like, it's not like she specifically like loves him like crazy, and she does do better. Like, she is helping him, and like, the sign of a good relationship is that the person you're with helps you be a better person. And she definitely does that for Jack. He doesn't necessarily do it for her, but they also haven't really spent much time together because she's been, running away from home for the last few days. It's a very strange relationship, but I don't know that fleshing it out a lot more would necessarily make it better. And I feel like might even be a little out of place with the overall plot and pacing of the movie.
It's interesting. I I like that Sally has a little more going on in her life than just I'm obsessed with this guy. Like, it's definitely, don't get me wrong, it's mostly I'm obsessed with this guy, but like, she has an abusive father who she's dealing with, but who she clearly loves and cares about because he's her creator. So she's like not sure how to deal with that situation because she wants to escape, but she still cares about him. And she's I mean, apparently psychic. Like, they never explained her premonition thing. I wasn't a huge fan of premonition. I think it could have just been she's smart enough to realize this isn't going to go well. It was weird to give her a flower vision, but whatever. But yeah, I don't know, apparently she's psychic. And she is actively trying to help, and she's telling him things, and she is disagreeing with him, which, she cares about him, but she's like, no, this is a bad idea. Like, that's a lot better than you can say for a lot of love interests in movies. So, it's not amazing, for sure. And
I mean, it's one of the victims of the short runtime for sure.
mm-hmm. But in the time they had with what they did with her, and for a cartoon and stuff, for a 90s cartoon, she is better developed than a lot of female characters in things that were made around the same time. And a lot
You
of
could
people
argue
are
she's
fans.
the protagonist.
Pardon?
You could argue she's the protagonist of this.
Actually, yeah, that would be an interesting argument to make. She's definitely they definitely would be the leads. But yeah, you see a lot of her life and how she is dealing with stuff and her opinions and things. She's definitely the most focused on character after Jack. But yeah, it's they're not focused on interacting specifically together enough, which I think is if they had fixed that a bit more, then I think overall it would seem a lot less weak. If they just maybe had a conversation just about themselves or just as people who enjoy each other's presence instead of their conversations him being like, oh my god, Christmas, and she's like, oh okay, but not Christmas though. Christmas seemed cool, but not for you, Jack.
I also think.
See, I
Sorry, I just also think that the movie does suffer from some lack of character development in some places, but I think it was kind of done on purpose that Jack and that only a handful of characters would have a real personality, because the participants of the inhabitants of Halloween Town are kind of mindless drones who do their own thing, and that's important to the plot and to their personality and to why ultimately making Halloween a Christmas thing failed, because nobody gets it, and even Jack himself is still trying to figure it out, but clearly the other people don't even have a basic understanding of what he's getting at. They're just doing it because he's telling them to do it.
I'm just saying, I love me a good romance, and a lot of the merchandise that I see emphasizes the relationship between Sally and Jack. And to me, I never really get, in the movie anyway, I never really get a sense of why she likes this guy so much. Because like you said, everyone seems to like him. And the only reason I can see for why he would like her is because he has this realization. It's like, hey, in a lot of Christmas movies, actually, it's like, hey, my life isn't that bad, and I should be thankful for what I have. And I guess he just sort of lumps her in with that, be like, oh, she's part of the life that I'm taking for granted. but it's just, I don't know, like they end the movie on them like, and they sing a song together. I'm like, okay, like this, you're trying to give me something and make me feel something, and I'm just like, my Wi-Fi is not connecting.
Yeah, I like finishing with them, but it's
Sally
not.
and Jack is a really
Yeah.
popular couple cosplay, and that's kind of weird. Yeah, like the movie's not really about their relationship, and they don't spend a lot of time together on screen. And it's definitely weird that at this point it's been conflated to this like beautiful romance, and it's not really. But it might, maybe just people who like dressing up spooky are starved for like for couples. Like what? You have like the Addams Family like couple, and then you have those two. That's pretty much it. Like you don't have a
Hotel
lot
Transylvania.
of options. That's true. People also, yeah, okay, but Mavis and Johnny actually have a cute connection and are like
Yeah,
super.
oh yeah, but
shippable.
I'm just saying that for Halloween couples, those are pretty much.
But you're right, there's like there's only so many of them.
Yeah, so like I think a lot of people were just like, well, they are canonically a couple. That's enough for us. They're the most true love.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we're missing the point by like diving into the story too much, because this movie is again about the visual experience, and I would agree with Ben the movie buff. It's there's a lot of gross, like to me it was gross things there. I'm like, I wouldn't, yeah, I don't know at what age I would show this to people, but certainly anybody who could be scared of things, perhaps this isn't the movie for them.
Yeah, it depends on your kid, but like there's still like a cutoff where you'd be like, I don't care how mature your kid is, I still wouldn't show it to them.
Like 4-year-olds.
Yeah, like I don't know. I don't think I would probably show this movie to someone under like 10.
Yeah.
Like, cause it is like, I mean, cause I was that kid who got nightmares really easily, right? It's like it's just a thing that happens for kids, and it's like even if the kid enjoys the movie, like they're getting nightmares from those visuals. They are like really unsettling and disgusting to look at. I especially hate the fat little child with the sewed shut eyes. I think it's my maternal instincts, but I'm like, who hurt this child? What's wrong with him? Get him out of here.
Yeah, it's music. Like it's a musical, and that's one of the things people seem to really like about this.
Yeah, I think we didn't touch about it, and well, you did kind of talk about it. How like you were like, yeah, but I knew a lot of these songs beforehand, and even like there's Marilyn Manson did a cover of This Is Halloween, which I absolutely love for two reasons. A, I think it's great, and B, there is a great animated music video using clips from the anime Soul Eater, which I think just matches up so well with it. But I actually like, yeah, they're good songs. They're catchy. Like What's This? This Is Halloween. They're quite well known. The Oogie Boogie Man song feels a little bit out of place in the movie because the aesthetic goes from like classic Halloween to like gambling hall / voodoo, which I thought was a strange choice, but it does kind of like set him aside from the rest of Halloween, and might be why he's kind of like in
outcast?
the basement. Yeah, but I like, not all of them are memorable, but I do think it's
they
this
all
thing.
work in the movie.
Yeah, it's not like there are some movies that are musicals or that have a lot of songs in them. You can classify it whichever way you want, but that like there's always that one song everybody fast forwards. You know what I mean? It's like, whenever you're watching the original, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, everybody fast forwards Cheer Up Charlie just because it's such a terrible song. Like it adds nothing to the movie and it's dumb. And like, I don't know, a fair amount of people when watching Grease will like fast forward the song where John Travolta is moping. I can't remember.
Sandy,
Yeah.
can't you see? But it's so good that I love it because he's just so whiny. I don't know, like he does some interesting vocal stuff at least. Because some like ballads are not my jam. I tend to like more hype songs, but like if a ballad has like that real emotion in it, and that real like. Yeah, and like their artistry in the way it's being sung, then it makes it interesting in a different way than a hype song.
Yeah.
Like, I like
But
that song.
yeah, okay, that was not as good an example as the first one. But the point
Yeah.
is that I feel like the movie doesn't have any songs that are like a direct fast forward, especially because most of the
that
songs,
one Sally song, not great.
most of the songs also move the plot forward.
Yes, that is true.
And including the Sally song,
Yeah.
it does move her character and the
Yeah.
plot forward.
There's no superfluous songs, I believe. And like, I think some of the more ballady ones are not as memorable as the more hype or spooky ones, but like, there's still, like, Jack's ballads are still quite memorable and interesting.
And very important.
Yes, very important, but also, like, yeah, like, just, once again, it's the vocalization that I like so much about it. Just the Jack, the Pumpkin King. Like, you know, there's so much, like, in the delivery that's super gorgeous. And that's why it's enjoyable. Like, there was a lot of effort and thought put into how it was said and stuff, so it makes it interesting in a different way.
Yeah, and I guess I'd have to agree with Ben, the movie buff, is like the other kind of secret benefit of the short runtime, which I'm sure was a result of the fact that this was a stop motion animation, is that it does leave you wanting more. Like, there's questions that are unanswered about the plot and the characters, and you know, and this kind of brings me to like the question I'm trying to figure out, because I don't know the answer, and maybe you guys do. It's like, why? Because in my mind, this is kind of an okay movie with like a really great visual. Everything visual is great, but the movie itself is it's fine. But it has this massive cult following, and it's, you know, the honest trailer for this movie makes the joke that it keeps Hot Topic in business. So I'm like, why do you guys think this movie's continually proved to be so popular?
I mean, I think it has to do with a couple things. The main one being the fact that it is both a Halloween and Christmas movie and does tend to grab people from both those crowds.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's not a coincidence that it keeps Hot Topic in business. Like, it is the most Hot Topic thing. Like, it is, because it is something that's aimed more or less at children. Not young children, but aimed at younger people that older people appreciate. For what it is artistically. I think that the maturity in, like, I don't know, like you said, you feel for Jack, and I think the older I am, the more I feel for Jack, rather than like seeing it as a fun adventure. The more I'm like, yeah, this guy was hitting his midlife crisis. He was trying really hard to change who he is, and like, it has kind of an evolution of how you view the characters and their action, which I think helps it to have longevity. Because a movie that is too simple, that has only one thing to look at, tends to not last.
There's
whereas this
so much
one,
going on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of more things. And I do think maybe the leaving you wanting more is part of why it became popular. Like, I'm gonna give my hot take here. If this movie had been an hour and a half, Corpse Bride would have never been made. Because I remember everybody wanted Corpse Bride to be more Nightmare Before Christmas, which it wasn't bad, but like, it wasn't entirely the same thing. But like, that movie probably wouldn't have been made if there wasn't this like kind of everybody wanting to see more of this and to have more of this in their life.
And it's such an interesting world that just draws you in, and it does feel very lived in, and the world building's really good, but you don't get a lot of answers, even though it feels like it exists, but like, you're like, what is going on? Like, so yeah, it makes it like really fires up people's imaginations.
And let's be honest, everybody at some point has wondered what would have happened if Jack had opened the one of the other doors. Like, personally, I want to see Jack opening the Shamrock door and going to St. Patrick's Day. Mostly because I want to see what the realm of St. Patrick's Day would look like.
Just a lot
and whether we would veer more towards the drinking, or what else would you do to make it a movie. I think we're talking about a different rating for this movie, but you know, it would be interesting to see.
All right, I guess that gives me some sense as to like, yeah, how, because what it comes down to is how unique this movie is, and how it stands in a space that is rather unoccupied. It's like, it's really one of the only stop motion animation movies that's been made in the last 30 years. And it's a Halloween and a Christmas movie. it has like this Tim Burton aesthetic, which clearly that's some people's thing. They love Tim Burton-y stuff, and it's also a musical. So the Venn diagram that this movie lives in the middle of kind of covers a lot of different stuff. So I guess that there you go. We've solved the answer, everybody. There you go. It is very much an A-type Christmas movie, though. Like there's no debate about that. I've never bothered like creating categories of Halloween movies because in my mind, there's so much less to Halloween as a holiday that, you know, to say there's A types and B types and C type Halloween movies, like there's really no point. Maybe people have a different opinion listening and they should, send us an email letting us know their opinions. But
Yes, communicate with us. We will read your emails. We will answer your questions. Do it.
Yeah, I think like Halloween just gets every horror movie like lumped in there as a quote Halloween movie. Which is yeah, I don't know. Which is kind of dumb because like there's definitely some horror movies that suit that vibe more than others, and like I know the last two Halloweens we watched Beetlejuice, which I think was kind of I don't know, like a fun way to celebrate kind of the thing that a lot of people like about Halloween, that silliness, that kind of like silly appreciation of things being not quite right, you know, and like and making fun of stuff, you know, that should be scary, and you know, like I don't know, there's that kind of vibe that I do see why a lot of people do enjoy Halloween and stuff. I know, like growing up, my family always had a huge problem with the glorification of this and that, and I understand where that comes from, but I just think it's kind of evolved to this point where people are just kind of having fun with with unusual things and with things that you wouldn't normally talk about or do or see, and they like having a time and place to be like, oh, you know, I have this secret skill for like gore makeup or whatever that I can pull out once a
Time
year.
to be spooky.
Yeah, like it's got this kind of, it's become this kind of fun holiday that I think if you don't take it too seriously, it's fine and it's fun, and Nightmare Before Christmas is a really good balance of that as well, I think.
also the title, I never really mentioned this, but the title of this movie is super clever because of course it's a play on The Night Before Christmas, but it is quite literally like for the people of the earth in this movie, it is a nightmare like of Christmas Eve. It's like, I'm sure in the universe of this, like that's a Christmas Eve no one will ever forget because of how horrific it was.
Those poor children will be traumatized for, like, Jack's doing his song where he's like, well, at least I tried, and they'll be talking about this for years, and I'm like, yeah, at least you tried, and traumatized like a billion kids in the process or whatever. Like, okay,
They should
Jack,
send
I
him
guess.
Yeah, send him the therapy bills.
And then he's like, oh, but it's fine because now I tried something new and now I got through my slump, and so what I did is fine because it worked out well for me, and now I'm like so psyched for next Halloween.
Yeah, to get real dark, it's as if the guy who bought a sports car with his midlife crisis caused a motor accident and survived and was like, oh, like now I understand what I have.
Now I appreciate life because I almost died in a car accident. Like, yeah, it's kind of, yeah, Jack is a very selfish character. He's not malicious, but he's very selfish, and he doesn't really think about other people.
Yeah, his intentions are good, but yeah, like he doesn't really think it through and how it affects other people, and that, if you spend too much time in that space, it can be dangerous.
And and I just wanted to say one thing, like that's a really interesting thing about the characters in general. I think that, I don't know, it's an interesting take that they're not malicious. They're like, this is how they exist, this is what they are, and to them, like, pain and grossness and stuff is fun. Like, they're legitimately having fun, they think this is fun, and like, so it's like they don't realize how they might be, hurting or traumatizing children or whatever. Like, they're not thinking about that because like they don't have a concept of what that means to humans,
which was necessary for, to have a villain in that kind of universe. You needed the other people to not be malicious, so that Oogie Boogie, the boogeyman being the only guy who actually like cares about hurting people is the villain, whereas all the other monsters are just doing what they do. It's their nature.
Like, they're not trying to ruin Christmas. They were honestly like, this is so fun. Like, won't they enjoy this hat made out of a dead rat? Won't this be fun when the Jack in the Box bites their asses? Like, yeah, they just don't
Yeah,
understand.
yeah. Yep. But luckily, we do understand Christmas, and we know that they were wrong. I almost wanted to like insert myself into this movie to be like, okay, Jack, like, here's what you like about Christmas, and here's how what you're trying to do will not actually work.
It's so frustrating watching him try so hard, and then he's like, no, guys, do it like this, and it's like, that's not better, Jack.
But yeah, if you take Ben the Movie Buff's advice, we're right in that kind of sweet spot where it's been a month since Halloween, and it's just under a month now till Christmas. So this is probably the best time to check it out. Back cookie ratings, I don't know. To me, this is mostly okay. It's not as great as I thought it was going to be. So I'll give it like 2.6, 2.7 out of 4 back cookies.
I think as a final rating, like, yeah, I enjoyed a lot, but again, as an art piece and an achievement in animation more than as a movie. So like as a movie, I'll go with Ben and the Movie Buff and give it a 3 out of 4 bat cookies. But as an animated movie, I'd give it a 3.5.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. Like,
Aw, you can tell you guys are married. Your brains are starting to converge.
yeah. Now I just agree with my husband. It started.
Oh no! Oh, I didn't mean it like that. Oh man! So yeah, this is an interesting way to start our Christmas season. Kind of talking about a movie that transitions from one holiday to another. If you have any opinions on what we've said today or anything we've been talking about, please let us know, because we have no mail and we'd love to read your mail, and we'll remind you how you can send us mail.
If you want to reach the show, you can send us an email at
batjarpodcast@gmail.com.
or you can tweet us at
The Bat Cookie Jar.
You can find the Bat Jar Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube, because we got a channel. Share our posts on Facebook, write reviews, give our shows a rating. This will help all people join us inside the Bat Jar, and we appreciate it dearly.
And this is where we would normally pull something out of the Bat Jar, but the Bat Jar is kind of taking a vacation over Christmas Advent time, because all our topics are going to be Christmas and Adventy. And the transition, the connection between this week's episode and next week's episode is Catherine O'Hara. Now, Catherine O'Hara is an actress from Toronto, Canada, who was the voice of Sally in The Nightmare Before Christmas. Most people know her now because she's the mom in Schitt's Creek. But way back in the day, she was also the mom in the Home Alone movies.
Kevin's mom.
And so that's right. Yeah, that's our transition point. We're talking of going from one Catherine O'Hara movie to another. We're going to talk...
I love that character, Kevin's mom, who probably has a name, but literally everyone only ever refers to her as Kevin's mom.
Or Mrs. McAllister, I guess.
Sometimes. It's mostly Kevin's mom. I feel like anyone I've ever heard talking about that movie and like how bad of a mom she is will just be like, yeah, Kevin's mom.
Yeah. So we'll be talking about the Home Alone franchise next week and how it occupies a weird space that kind of straddles the line between an A-type Christmas movie and a B-type Christmas movie. Because
we're talking about the entire series.
We'll probably focus mostly on the first two and because the third is something, and then the TV movie ones are just something else to themselves.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I just wanted to make sure we knew what we're getting into.
Yeah, so it should be interesting because there's a lot of thoughts and opinions, and we might have some other friends here with us to talk about them. So Mjolnir, you're married to beef pork ribs now, so if you didn't feel like you had total freedom to come onto the show whenever you wanted, you have it now. Like, you're welcome to come back anytime you feel like it.
Thanks, much appreciated. With any luck, I'll be working. I'll be that day because I need money, but we need money. But if I'm not, I'd be down to talk about Home Alone. I enjoyed a lot.
There you go. So until next time, when we talk about the physical assault of burglars, among other things, with Home Alone. I'm Average Joe.
I'm Beef Pork Ribs.
I'm Mjolnir.
Catch you on the flip side.
Ya filthy animal.
That's my goodbye.